is just sales. It's all sales. So if you want to do a TED Talk, here's what happens. The events, and Jeannie here in the back of the room, y'all know Jeannie, raise your hand.
Jeannie Snyder!
Jeannie has actually been on a production team for a TEDx event, right? That means they're the people who choose who speaks on the stage. So if you want to speak at a TED Talk, you need to know what they're looking for. And
the curators.
Right,
Curators
curators, that's the right word.
Producers do the event.
Exactly. So anytime you're trying to sell anything, you need to find out what the buyer wants. Right? So you've heard almost every speaker here talk about that. So when a TEDx talk comes out, what they usually do is have a one-page website and say, here's the theme for our event. If you want to speak, fill out this form. It's usually about one page, right, Jenny?
Yes.
One-page form. Who are you? What's the big idea? TED is all about the big idea. What's the big idea? What's yours? Why do you want to talk about this? Why are you qualified? Give us a brief synopsis of what you're going to say. And maybe a link to a video that shows you speaking so that we know you have some idea how to stand up here and talk. That's pretty much it. That's the whole page. Is that pretty much it, Jenny?
It's intentional that you only do the idea worth spreading. They do not want to hear your talk. They do not want to hear that you've already done this talk because they want it to be the first time you've done it.
Okay, so they want to know that.
Both of you, just riff. You got 8 minutes. Both of you riff.
Okay.
All right, so Jeannie, tell the audience as a curator, what is it that you're looking for when someone fills out that form?
We're looking for an idea worth spreading, something you have not talked about. Well, let me rephrase. You could have talked about it before, but you should not have done 43 keynotes on that topic. Why not? They want something new at their show, right? TEDx is an idea worth sharing, and what Dre said was so important. Pay attention to their theme. Now, different curators are pickier than others, but TEDx has lots and lots and lots of rules and guidelines. You want to live inside them. And so you want to make sure that I'll just give the example that we were talking about. So ours was TEDx Georgia College. It is the power of the public square. It was seated in a public liberal arts university, so they'll play on public, right, and bringing voices to the public square. The people who wrote their one-pager and said, and here's how I think I align with your theme, they get to go in the initial big pile. If they just look like they're out there shooting in the dark to get some publicity, that's not TEDx. That's a lot of places, but that's not TEDx. So it's exactly what Dre said, align with what the curators are looking for, because it means, and if you don't get it, it doesn't mean you're not right for TEDx. It might mean you're not a fit for that particular theme, that particular show. So keep trying. It helps to keep trying. But don't send them your keynote you've done 400 times. Not interested. You're looking for new ideas.
Oh, we both got.
That's kind of Mike. Look at that. Okay.
I appreciate it. So.
He got 8 minutes, not quite, but yeah, but.
I'll take questions. I'll definitely take questions. Let me get a couple more things though.
You got 8 minutes.
Before I take questions. So the thing with TEDx, I've done 4 of them, and I work with there's different curators for each one. And one of the things, the first one I ever did, the guy kept saying to me, Dre, this is not a speech. It's not a speech, it's a TED Talk. And it's all about getting a big idea out there. And everybody knows the TED Talk is like 15 minutes, right? So this is not a 45-minute keynote. So you want to get that big idea out and explain to people why that idea matters, and it needs to be something different. It needs to be something new. And with each talk that I did, and I was telling Jeannie this is something funny. So I did 4. I did 2 in South Florida, 1 in Las Vegas, and 1 in South Dakota, believe it or not.
South Dakota.
Right, so the one I did in South Dakota, right? So what I would do.
You thought it was where?
Right, because I'm going to tell the story. So, anytime I saw that there was a TEDx call for speakers, I would just fill it out. And I filled out like 20, and I got 4. So if you don't get picked, it doesn't mean there's anything wrong with your talk. I submitted the same talk like 10 times before it got picked. So I remember I got the email that said, hey, this is TEDx LATI. That was what it's called. TEDx LATI, you've been chosen. So I'm really excited. I'm like, man, I get to go to LA, right? I'll go to Miami. So I'm going to LA for this TED Talk. And they're like, yeah, you get to go to TEDx LATI. And I'm looking at it and it says, I thought it was like Los Angeles something. But it was actually called Lake Area Technical Institute. And I'm like, well, where's that? Lake Area Technical Institute. There's lakes everywhere, right? So I go Google it. Lake Area Technical Institute is in San Diego. I mean, not San Diego, South Dakota.
You did it again.
Yeah. So I'm thinking about California, right? So it's in South Dakota. So I ended up going to South Dakota, and the place was like an hour away from the airport. I had to rent a car just to drive up there. But that's how I ended up doing that one. But the whole thing about doing TED Talks is having a big idea. you should write it down. What I would do is save it in Evernote. Every point, because they ask the same questions every time. So every one you submit to, you just copy paste, just put the same stuff in there, and then as long as you believe it's a good enough idea, eventually you'll get chosen. And that's how I got TED Talks.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because when you go into most of the online pieces, there's not a way, you normally save a document, you can't. So, because it's inside their system. So do what Dre said, write it into some other document, then put it in there so we got it for you.
Basically,
5 minutes, feel free to take questions if you want.
okay, let's do questions.
Yeah.
Okay, there's one over here, then we'll come to you.
I was
What's your
gonna
name?
Bria Grant.
Hey, Bria.
So I was gonna ask because I project you. No worries, babe. I got it.
She's getting ready for TEDx.
I was gonna ask, did you do any speeching classes or coach a speech coach, or is that typically required for?
Oh, we got a speech coach right here.
Oh yeah, that's right. I was like, what's wrong with you? Yes, you are. Okay. But I was just curious, is that a requirement? Is there because I've seen where some people go through like a training and they're managed by the TEDx team and they're followed and they watch them perform in other spaces. So I just wasn't sure if that was your experience.
You answered that.
Good question. So is it Bria?
Bria.
Bria.
Yes.
Okay, so Bria's question was, did you have any type of coaching? You mean once I was chosen or before I was chosen?
Either one.
Okay. So for me, since I've been making stuff, I made a lot of content. I have probably 8,000 videos on YouTube. I got 2,500 episodes of my podcast. I've been creating content since 2005. I have the proverbial 10,000 hours of content creations. I didn't need coaching, but
Okay.
I'm not saying that to knock you out. I just didn't. But with the 4 TED Talks that I've done, each one they do it differently. So the first one, I had maybe 1 or 2 Skype calls and they would talk to me. The second one, and I don't remember who was asking me this. Was it Ramon? Somebody was asking me about this.
I was asking you about last night.
It was you. Okay, so Gene was asking me about the second one that I did. They were super thorough. So the event was in February. The week before Christmas, December, you had to have the whole talk down, word for word, full dress rehearsal. You had to know everything, word for word. The other one, I did one in Las Vegas, there was no dress rehearsal. I was messing up at the day before, I was messing the talk up. I was like, I'm gonna mess this up on stage. I didn't mess it up, but there was no practice. And the fourth one is pretty similar. So each one is different. It depends on who the curation crew is. So you wanna look at their curation crew, which you probably won't know till you do one. But the more people they have and the longer they've been doing it, usually the more professionally it's run. And the biggest thing you want is that video. It's not the live event, it's the video. Because the video is what sells after the talk's done. This is what I was we're trying to sell Ramon on doing the TED Talk. You think Ramon's
Yes,
gonna take it?
yes.
I said it's not for me. You got 2 minutes and 30 seconds. What's the reason I said it's not for me? Oh, no, we got a question over here. So take your
Yes.
question over
Yeah, oh, and one thing to that is, look at that, exactly what Dre said, look at the background now. It doesn't mean, like, ours was very professionally run and we were ninjas about the details, and it was our first year. So look around and find out, like, where it's seated, who owns it, who's the licensee, who's the executive producer, who's the board of curators, exactly. If it's one that's been around for a while, go see reviews, see if they do it well. But you should, if it's done well, you should be assigned a coach that they have vetted. And so, yes. Oh, TM was a coach for ours, and he was one of the coaches
You
for
got 2 minutes.
Anyway, go.
Amberly?
Yes.
This is awesome, I love it. So I actually did a TEDx talk for Berkeley, and they found me. I didn't fill out an application. They found me. They watched, a curator watched me on Instagram and not only looked at what I was posting, but how I was responding to people. So like, people like really look at your stuff. Sometimes I'm like, nobody sees that. That's how they found me. But right now, I have a client of mine that wants me to fill out an application for her for a TEDx talk. In your opinion, is it better to have someone fill out the application for you, or should you be doing it yourself?
She should
Or
be
both?
doing it herself. You can give her advice, but they want to know that it is a true message of the person. And also, it's the responsibility. Like when we gave edits back to say, hey, we need you to tweak your speech this way, we didn't do it for them. They needed to step up. That's part of the TEDx mission. It's about
I don't
independent
have to do
thinking.
that. I don't have to do the application.
You can give her
I can tell
advice. She
her.
should do it herself.
Okay, thank you.
Closing comments?
Easier.
I wouldn't say closing comments, but there's one person in there, when she speaks, when she raises her hand, I just pay attention, Dre. You know what I'm saying?
Dora Maria.
Yeah. Dora, you get that question in?
It wasn't necessarily a question, but I 1,000% agree with online tools. So if you have like a Google Doc or OneNote or things like that, or Evernote, there's free versions of that content, those apps as well. But put it there, because if your phone dies and all your little cheat notes are in there, then it's a sad day for you. So don't do that. So use tools that are online that you can access from a computer, things like that in different places. And that way, when these things come up, whether it's an award, a TEDx talk, you have that information that you can easily and quickly utilize it, fill it in, and get going. So that's it.
Thank you, Dora.
Any other questions?
It's a different animal though. You gotta pay attention to being a TEDx versus just a talk you might give at another conference. Very, very different.
Yeah, and I would just say in closing, and I think the time is almost up, and Ramon's not saying anything, but all right, so as far as the TED Talk, really, it's a big idea. You only have about 15 minutes. It's very condensed. So really, you're looking for a new idea, something that's kind of breaking people's false beliefs about they thought this thing, but you want to give them something different. That's different than our keynotes and the kind of speeches that we give, as you said, 40, 50 times, not the same thing.
And you're presenting something for them to make a decision on. You're giving them, you're not telling them how to think about something. You're offering your expertise, and then they make their own decisions and take, hopefully, into their idea worth spreading, whether it's in the hallway.
Round of applause to